Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll get started in about 1 or 2 minutes. Just give people time to sign on. Great. So I think we should get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the unveiling of the annual WOW study results. We're very excited. I am joined today by my trusted colleague, Christian Bourque, Executive VP at the Léger Montreal office. Hello, Christian. Looks like it's nice and sunny in Montreal. You're very lucky. So of course this year we are calling this report our special edition COVID-19 because there have been a lot of changes to how retail works for most people, and a lot of changes in the way that consumers interact with retail as well. So we'll be covering all of that stuff in the presentation. And of course, I'd like to point out that this is an endeavor that is spearheaded by Léger in collaboration with the Retail Council of Canada. An article is being published today. Where was it, Christian? Again, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Oh, it will be in the Retail Insider.
Retail Insider, exactly. Yep. Exactly. So this study focuses on the opinions of almost 13,000 respondents across Ontario, and really helps Ontarian business or retailers operating in Ontario better understand where they kind of excelled, where they may have fallen behind in terms of the customer experience. So all of these very important measures, and we'll get to those measures in a moment, that apply to the entire retail space and provide you with a very robust sort of comparative view of how you're doing on those different pillars. I should point out that the webinar is being recorded, and that is so that we can make it available after this session to you all via email or on our website. If questions arise as we go through the presentation, feel free to write them into the questions area, the question box on the, in the panel of your screen, rather than the chat, and we'll get to them all at the same time at the end. So as I mentioned, this is all about retailers in Ontario, our 10th year, great. And we basically run an online study where respondents are asked to tell us where they've shopped in the last little while. And we provide them with 145 different retailers, and 13,000 people respond, which means each retailer is evaluated or assessed by about 400 respondents who have visited the retailer since June 2020. Of course, this year, the field window is a little bit later than it usually is. We wanted to make sure that we were not right in the middle of closures. We wanted to make sure that stores are open or had been open so that we can get that good measure of the store experience. And as with any research endeavor, we ensure that the data is weighted and adjusted to be representative of the retailer's recent clientele. So a couple of quick things about the WOW model itself. So the WOW model is a number of key measures about the in-store experience. And the index itself is built from the scores, or is derived from all of the different scores of these various pillars. Of course, we group them into the key components, products, which includes things like quality of products, the variety, new products that are being made available to the customer, price, so competitiveness, promotional activities, service, which includes all of the staff interactions and efficiency at checkout, things like that. But also we also focus on things like store ambiance and what's the information like, how does it feel, is the store laid out properly, and customization, which is all about the sense of belonging and the endeavors or the activities, I guess, that the retailer participates in to build that connection with their consumer. There are other dimensions that are measured that are not part of the actual index, and that's proximity of the store, customer recognition, the store's curb appeal, and integration of contact points. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of COVID. Obviously, this is not a surprise, but there's been a marked decline in the incidence of store visits at most retailers evaluated. Probably about half, sort of dropped by half since last year. Of course, this the exception is the essential businesses, right? So the grocery stores, the pharmacies, the convenience stores, hardware stores, those have remained open throughout the pandemic in various ways, sometimes, you know, early closures and late openings. But nonetheless, these stores are obviously showing a decrease in the incidence of in-store traffic, but not drastic. So less people go to stores in general, and less people go to these stores even if they're open. The impact that has had, there are a number of impacts. I'd like to sort of sum it up by saying that shoppers are now mission-based as opposed to browser-based. So the idea of going into a store and looking around to see what I might need or what might pique my interest, that's out the window. People go to stores to get right to the point. They do research online. They know it's there. They go get it in and out. But of course, what that has done is that the conversion rate has gone up dramatically. I think 5 points since 2019, about 5% more, which means that when people go to the store, it results in more purchases. So you get less of those people that just go to go and then come out with nothing. And I think one other important point is that obviously the number of times that people go to your store, it's not just themselves, the average has gone down. So again, they go when they absolutely need to. There has been an increase, however, of course, in terms of ordering over the phone and ordering online, particularly in pharmacies, furniture, electronics retailers, hardware stores, and improvement centers. And you know, 1 in 4 do research online before. So they want to know, is the product there? Is the product that I need available? Is it on the shelf? Can I order it and go pick it up? So that has had an impact as well. In terms of interaction on the floor, not surprising. There's been, people tend to stay in their own bubble when they go to a retailer. However, the interesting thing is that there's been obviously an increase in what is perceived as a greeting at the front door. So what we used to see at the Gap, hello, how are you? We now see pretty much everywhere, but it's all about, do you need a mask? Or actually, you need a mask. Do you want some hand sanitizer? Do you have any questions about how things operate now? So there's been a marked increase in the number of people who say they've been greeted at the entrance, and that has increased for 90% of all retailers, where people say that that's the truth. And of course, it's not uncommon. It's more common than not to find someone at the front of the store, but after that, then you don't see employees so much because they're not interacting with customers. And in fact, customers don't necessarily go towards the employees either. There's some reticence to say, I'm going to walk up to this person and say, oh, could you help me with something? Again, this idea of a bubble, the social distancing has had an impact on that. So that has decreased significantly. Now, there's been sort of a fork in the road, I think, in terms of customer experience. So there's been a decrease for, you know, while many retailers have been really successful at providing a good customer experience and even improving it, most of the time we're seeing a decrease, and that's due to a number of COVID-related issues. In the businesses that are considered essential, they were allowed to be open, and they were allowed to be open with the new regulations of, you know, again, social distancing, making people line up, making people sanitize before they come in. But there's been sort of a negative impact on some other of their core experiential measures, which are, you know, things around price and promotional activities, the courtesy, the competence and availability of employees, right? Because there's been this impression that they're focusing on, we're just allowed to be open, and the importance to the customer is secondary, and which affects the store atmosphere. In a few cases, of course, there were, at the beginning of the pandemic, not a good thing, but there were a number of strikes that affected supply chains. So the variety of products, the availability of products was kind of, a bit of a problem, and continued to be a problem either in actual fact or perceived to be a problem by customers. They thought, well, I better go get something in case it's gone. But again, at the end of the day, and not to contradict myself, but in terms of the omni-channel or the increase of curbside and of offering solutions to consumers to not have to go to the store because they didn't really like it, there have been increases in retailers who have stood out in creating that atmosphere of there are more options for me to shop than there were before. If we talk about a little bit, on this point, I'd like to talk about a little bit more about fashion boutiques and the specialty or niche retailers. In general, we've seen a drop for essential businesses, as I've said, in terms of customer experience or consumer. But the pandemic has also really created a phenomenon in which the in-store experience for these specialty and niche retailers has gone up dramatically. Clothing and accessories, footwear, sports, beauty products, that has improved significantly since last year. The integration, again, of additional loyalty activities, obviously most of these retailers realized more had to be done to create the loyalty to keep their customer, gives a sense that yes, I am important to them. So all of these loyalty programs that were adjusted early on in the pandemic, all of the different channels that were opened up, curbside, call and pick up, online and pick up, all of those things really helped drive that increase. And of course, for clothing stores that were open, the increase can be explained by the fact that now you're not competing with 30 people shopping at the same time as you are. You're not really competing because they only allow a certain number of people in the store. Therefore, you feel like like you're being taken care of. So that would be something that really helped promote this sense of being having a unique or rather positive customer experience. Excuse me. Of course, we cannot talk about anything. We can't go on without mentioning the safety measures, right? I mean, and that has had a significant impact on how people shop. And it's not just the mask, and it's not just the sanitizing at the front. If you think about beauty products, for example, testers had to be taken off the shelf. We don't want 1,000 hands on something that people are going to try. So that has had that has created a difference of perceptions in those areas. Jewelry stores where you can no longer necessarily touch the items. On the other hand, that has been less detrimental to grocery stores, convenience stores, and pharmacies, where people aren't really expecting an experience. They're looking for it's much more functional. And in fact, in grocery, much more appreciated that, for example, in Quebec at some point, people were only allowed to go through the fruit and vegetable aisle once. They couldn't sort of linger. They would go through and not be able to come back in. So the health measures were appreciated. It felt like, oh, they're doing it to protect me as well and to help me feel safe. If we want to look at those that have really stood out in terms of indicating to their customer, why they were doing these things and what the impact on the shopping experience would be, these are the ones. So if we talk about Reitmans, Call It Spring, M&M Food, these are all retailers that have had a very, very good sense of what they need to tell people, how they need to communicate what this all means to make them feel safe. They also want to make sure that people have their time, take their time when they walk into the store. So for example, Samsung or MEC, when they were open, it was a much more personal, it was almost like having a personal shopper with you to help you walk around. For them, it was all about safety, but for the consumer, it felt like a special experience. Apple did the same thing. But Apple and Microsoft also created some very powerful online tools, scheduling, making appointments to go to the store. All of these things have really helped drive the measures of satisfaction with the experience for these retailers. If we think about Reitmans, they were very, very open in their communications to their customer about this is what we're doing, this is why, and this is how we're going to make it easy to comply for you to comply with them. So some pretty interesting stuff. So let's get to the actual best retailers in Ontario. This is the most exciting part. So the WOW index, as I mentioned before, is an index that's based on a number of pillars and measures that all roll up into this score that's between 0 and 100. We determine the top. Some years it's top 10, this year it's top 12, because we pick the ones that have a score of 90 or over. So this year we have 12. And at number 12, we have Lee Valley Tools. So Lee Valley, they were 6th last year. And they, in their sector, so of course, we look at it by sector, we look at it overall. This is the overall score, the overall ranking. They really stand out for a number of the key measures that are very important to consumers, and that is the quality of their products, the variety of their products, the competence, so the employees know what they're talking about, they advise you when you go, and the atmosphere of the store. Number 11, we have Nespresso. Nespresso is almost always or often in the top 10. They do really, really well. Their score this year and their rank was fairly stable from last year. And again, very good performance on all the dimensions, including, again, atmosphere, employee sort of employee knowledge and advice that they give to their customer, and the quality of their product. Of course, Nespresso is a very, their customer is very engaged, so it's really important for them to keep those measures intact. At number 10, we have Yves Rocher, a boutique in the beauty sector. They were 24th last year, and this year they're number 10. So they really worked hard throughout the pandemic to widen their product offering, really focused on new products and higher quality products, or at least that's the impression that consumers had, and it really played a role in having them rise in the rankings. Bath and Body Works, 18th last year, number 9 this year, and again, it's all due. I mean, it's tied to the fact that the beauty sector in general has gone up in rankings because of the pandemic. There's been a lot of work done. That was sort of a very how should I put it? One of the most I guess one of the most dangerous spaces in terms of what could go wrong during a pandemic, and all of the beauty retailers in Canada really stepped up and battled the negative impact of COVID-19. So they have had a huge increase, a pretty good increase in their ratings related to in-store service, with employees being more available, being more welcoming, and efficiency of service, which is really key. Excuse me. So M&M, top 10 last year as well, I believe. They've really reinvented themselves over the last few years, and it shows in their rankings, with a lot of work done on self-service, which is much appreciated, especially in a context like this one. They have more service on the floor, which is something that they've implemented in the last 2 years as well. And perceptions of high quality product as well help drive their rank. This one, Fire. So they're first time top 10, I believe. And they really stand out on employee competence. This is where you see that an employee who's highly engaged in the product that they're selling can help drive these retailers up. And of course, anyone who's been to their store, they have a very, very specific type of layout that's specific to their to what they sell. The store atmosphere is often very, very important because of the type of clientele that they have. So yeah, so they're welcome to the top 10. MEC, I think we're 17th last year, I believe. Really nice increase for them. And in particular, we're seeing that it's related to obviously a number of different measures, but in particular to the discovery of new products that is much appreciated by the consumers. Apologies. So here we have MEC. Let's talk about MEC. Sorry, I'm struggling here with my Lego. So if we talk about Lego, they were in 16th place last year. Obviously, again, due to the pandemic, there's been a huge increase in interest, and consumers have done a lot of research when the pandemic hit. My kids are at home. I need to keep them occupied. What am I going to do with them? And for themselves as well, we need to have hobbies and things to do. So that has helped really help them rise to the top 10. But they've also been working really hard on ensuring that they have the product, that people don't go onto their website and see out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. So they probably realized very quickly that they needed to step it up and that there would be an increase, and they delivered. And of course, they've also always been known for having great promotions. Stage was #1 last year. They remain in the top 10. And excuse me, what we feel explains their drop this year a little bit is that the availability of in-store service and product as well helps explain their loss of a few points and in the ranks. But again, customers love the atmosphere and they love the shops themselves. The Body Shop was at #21 last year. So again, significant increase in its index, especially in the amount of time given to each customer to properly explain the products and provide advice, right? What do you need? Or what are you looking for? And there's a lot of that has had a huge positive impact on the sense of belonging and the loyalty that people give to the Body Shop. #2, Lush. Slight rise. Lush is often in the top 10, a regular in the top 10, in 9th position last year. Again, beautiful shops, beautiful variety, welcoming, and availability of products have always been strengths for Lush. So wonderful to see them at #2. #1, Reitmans. Huge congratulations to everyone on the list, but especially to Reitmans. A spectacular rise for Reitmans this year. Probably one of the largest, the second largest rise in ranks from last year. Outperformed, did an amazing job on all the dimensions really that we measured. I think they ranked 61st last year. So this is I believe the biggest change, one of the biggest changes we've ever seen. For Reitmans, it's really about their brand ambassadors. They've always been known as a store that's for me, for those who shop there, feel that it is really for them. It's created for them. Any new stuff that they bring in is like, ooh, that is for me. So that sense of belonging is very strong with Reitmans. And of course, there were the financial difficulties, which may have, to some extent, because of such a strong sense of loyalty with their customers, may have sort of created a sense, I guess, an outpouring of compassion, like I really need to support them. They're my retailer. That could be part of the success that we're seeing. We also like to look at sector-specific lists to highlight the fact, because of course, if you look at it overall, it's all everything mixed together, but you want to see who in their own sector rises to the top. In food and grocery this year, Longo's, their first time to being #1. Longo's, again, significant increase in all dimensions, in particular efficiency at the cash register. And I do know that from firsthand experience that they were making very big changes from the beginning of the pandemic. It was obvious that they were really working hard, and they were seen as the reference in their sector as those who the grocery store that was working the hardest, or that was being the most innovative in terms of the sanitary measures, like how they changed the store layout, how they structured the store greeting and the masks and all of that stuff. So that was very important for them in understanding why they rose to the top. Remedies RX was not polled last year, and this year we included them, and they rise right to the top in their sector, standing out for quality of products and the quality of their service. 7-Eleven in the convenience store sector takes the first place. They were third last year, I believe, and they've really improved in terms of their measures on perceptions of a variety of products, pricing, and services. And I mean, I should mention that 7-Eleven gets the best rating on variety of products and services for that particular pillar. Lee Valley in the hardware space, always stands out on all measures among the group of hardware stores, but they really stand out when it comes to staff competency and atmosphere of the store. It is an experience that is probably closer to a it's almost like a specialty store within that sector. In alcohol and cannabis, Fire is right up at the top of their sector, and they are also in the top 10. I've mentioned already that they, atmosphere, store layout, competency of employees, but it's important to know, if we look at this list, that LCBO, is outperformed by all of the cannabis shops, which is kind of an interesting thing to see. Holt Renfrew, we've already talked about. Again, significant increase, slight edge on Simons, who last year was #1 in this category. Again, stands out in terms of the attention that they brought to each of their customers. And I think Nordstrom's also is a player that has gone up since last year, so something to look out for. Sage, we've talked about, they remain in the top 10 overall, obviously #1 in their sector. Lush, we've also already talked about. And, again, not to repeat what I've said, but in general, most of the, Michaels and Mastermind Toys are up since last year due to the increase in interest of what they do provide. Furniture, Kitchen Stuff Plus, right up there at the top. They're on the rise as well, with Leon's and Structube, I think, are two of the ones that are most stable. The other ones have moved around a bit. For Kitchen Stuff Plus, one of the key things that was evident was that the store layout and the signage have improved since last year, which helps them rise in their sector. In the electronics space, not a big surprise. Samsung and Apple are always kind of up at the top. They do foster a sense of loyalty, because they do have a very personal, both of these stores have a very personal approach to the customer. And of course, most people who are loyal to one brand will continue to shop at that store to get their products. So the brand loyalty plays a big role in this one as well. And in the sporting goods, again, MEC, I've already mentioned, stands out for really what the products that they offer and the atmosphere and the layout of the stores. Let's talk a little bit again about women's clothing. Reitmans, we've already talked about, but it's really important to know that, to repeat that the loyalty that they sort of engender with their type of service helps them continue to outperform on many measures. Aerie in the underwear sector, compared to last year, far ahead of the other two. If you look at the rank, they're 21 overall. La Vie en Rose and Victoria are in the 70s. Stable versus last year, and continues to perform on pricing, product availability, and product new products, I guess I would call it. So there's some new stuff that customers appreciate. Banana Republic in the unisex section always performs well. And again, most of the clothing stores are on the rise this year. It may be due to the fact that people are shopping online more and not having to perhaps deal with the again, sort of the waiting for service, the waiting for a changing room and things like that. So that may have had an impact on this sector. Men's clothing, Harry Rosen, always up there at the top, and has this year seen improvements on some of their measures related to pricing and promotional activities. So clearly they've done a good job of better communicating that they do have, that there is some movement on that front. Call it spring. You know, in this space, Naturalizer used to be right up at the top. It's almost like this list has moved a lot in terms of for shoes. And Naturalizer was at the top, Call It Spring was at the bottom. Now it's the reverse. And really a general decline for the category as a whole, but in particular for Naturalizer, which helped Call It Spring rise right to the top. And I think now I will pass it over to Christian, who would like to talk about the online customer experience. And let me just do that. Is that going to work? Christian?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, thank you, Luke. And again, congratulations to all of our winners who have sort of rose at the top of our ranking, given the tough circumstances, of course, tied to our pandemic. And one of the reasons why we also wanted to share the Wow Digital this year and talk about it is also in the context of the pandemic as well, where the sort of omni-channel experience has become, I would say, sort of a do or die in the retail industry. And we've seen some of the major retailers in Canada really sort of ramp up on their efforts to ensure that they do deliver that omni-channel experience to their customers because of the context of where at some point we could not make it to the store. And when we could, we are different now as consumers compared to who we were before the pandemic. Luke has already mentioned that fewer people have gone to fewer stores. So basically it's because they're pre-shopping online and making sort of wise decisions as to where they will go and try to be more efficient in terms of shopping in store. And some of them have decided basically just, well, I should then buy it online if I'm already going to these stores and going into sort of pre-shop as well. So we will be talking now about the actual online customer experience aspect of the Wow, and look at what our results are this year and who the winners are as well this year as well. So we basically go through the similar process to what is done for the in-store experience. This time, however, it's 14,000 Canadians. So this is a Canada-wide results that we will be looking at over the next couple of minutes compared to the Ontario physical store that's based on geography for the in-store experience that Luke presented. So we basically measure 173 websites and mobile apps. And of course, we do the same thing. Where did you go to shop or actually make a transaction online over the last couple of months? We give them the full list of 173 online retailers. They basically make a selection, and based on that, we randomly select those that they will evaluate in detail. Data collection was done in November, and everything is weighted back to make sure that the data is truly representative of your website visitors. Also, contrary to the in-store Wow, we do go a little bit beyond the retail space. We actually have retail banking, which is part of the Wow Digital. Also, we'll go to some delivery services. We'll see those in a minute. So it's just a little bit broader than just retail, but it's still focused mostly on retailers in Canada. And again, the model is based on 14 dimensions, which are based on the visual appeal of the website, what's being offered, variety of products, competitive pricing. Does the website sort of talk about what's new, what's sort of brand new, and what I can discover about their new product offering as well? browsing and searching, sort of ease of browsing, of finding the information you need, and being able to customize your online experience. We then have decision-making support, so the quality of information, the advice that's being provided, the availability of the chat bot, and all of these other sort of aids that will allow you to make a wise decision as a shopper, the availability of customer or expert reviews, and online support being offered. There's other dimensions that we also look at, but are not part of the basic model, because as such, there are some retailers that may not allow you to actually make a transaction online. We still measure them, but they will not be part of the basic model that delivers the scores that we see today. So we also cover transactions, delivery, which is an issue. We've seen scores for delivery, of course, go down this year because of basically how sort of massively it's 2020 was the year of the cardboard box. So in a way, so it shows in the results that we see this year as well. After sales service. And one last one that is part of the basic model, and actually in terms of its overall weight on the score is playing a role that is much more important this year compared to years before, is the quality of the omni-channel experience. Because as Luke mentioned, a lot of online pre-shopping, which led maybe to a store visit, and the capacity of a retailer to basically recognize me as the consumer, regardless of the door that I went in through, whether it's the website, the app, or the actual store. Of course, there are impacts in terms of the pandemic on our online customer experience. We've seen a slight decrease in the number of unique visits, but an overall major increase in terms of conversion rate. We've also seen a huge increase in first-timers. In our study that we did in terms of changing consumer behavior during the pandemic, we measured last summer that 47% of Canadians have actually bought something online in a way that they had never done before in their life. So there's a lot of, basically, if you allow me the expression, there's a lot of newbies going on to your website to maybe buy or shop for the very first time. And we need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not sort of the usuals and the loyals coming back and back again to make new transaction on the website. This year, because of the pandemic, the context of the pandemic, there's a lot of new people visiting you for the very first time that may not have the same level of comfort with interacting with your online offer compared to what you've seen before. And it has had an impact on the fact that a majority of the websites we measure are actually seeing a decline in their overall digital scores that we measure this year because of these newbies trying to find their way around your website. However, the increase in the conversion rate, which we also saw in store, also means that people more than ever want to be efficient when shopping online. Second impact is also an increase in total number of transactions, a lot more usage of online help tools available on websites. So if it's your traditional sort of loyal consumer coming back and back again, they will not need to go to these online tools that you provide to your customers. This year, because there's a lot of new people shopping on your websites, they're using all of those online aids that you provide more often than they used to in the past. And we see that the level of satisfaction with those online tools is not as good as it used to be or was over the past year. We also see that this may lead for people to have heightened expectations about their online experience. And what we see is a general sort of decline in scores for online experience across the board. We still have winners that are actually sort of awesome at delivering a very good online experience to their customers. But overall, you should expect as a retailer that your score has declined over last year. We're even seeing it in the banking sector, where you would think if there are sort of retailers that have sort of a long-standing reputation for quality for online experience, it would be the banks. But even them, because some people are actually just not going to their checking account and maybe sort of transferring money from their accounts, they're doing new stuff online with their bank, which again may be causing some dissatisfaction in the short term. We've also seen a decline in scores for delivery and after sales service that we've measured this year. And of course, this is due to the fact that delivery services have had to adapt to a huge increase in volume over a very limited period. We've also seen the same, for example, if I can just say this, before the pandemic, 2% of the food bought by Canadians was bought online. At the height of the pandemic last summer, it was almost at 20% of all food bought in Canada was bought online. This for our grocery sector is not a change, it's a revolution, which basically has meant a lot of adaptation in a very short period during that revolution, and has led to a little bit of a decline in satisfaction in terms of delivery and after service. We've also seen a decline in loyalty activities and personalization scores in the online experience. Of course, probably due to the fact that the clientele going to your website is different. It's not only your traditional loyal client coming back, a lot of new people visiting your websites, and maybe they're not yet part of that sort of loop of loyal customers that basically witness and give positive scores to your efforts to personalize their online experience. Even though we have a sort of a general decline in scores, we still have sort of retailers that show stellar performance across Canada, and we'll go to our winners now. And again, same principle as what Luke presented. We now have a top 11 because there's two people that have the same score in 10th place. And these are people that basically have a score of 90 or over on an overall score potentially of 100. So these people really stand out in terms of delivering a positive online experience. In 10th place, we have Nespresso. Nespresso was in the top 10 as well last year. Of course, they have a fairly specific business models. Most people that shop at Nespresso online or in store, it's because they have an espresso brewing machine at home. So they do very well in sort of having a very constant brand image across all platforms. They also, on that omni-channel variable, that's part of the model, they're one of the best performers in Canada in allowing their customer to feel that they are recognized, regardless of how they want to access Nespresso, they feel they have the same experience, whether it's online, in store, or even on the phone for Nespresso as well. In 10th place, Yves Rocher, who was also there last year. Yves Rocher, in terms of loyalty program and efforts to offer sort of the best loyalty initiatives, is one of the best retailers in Canada for online experience, and helps them sort of move up into the top 10 of the best online retailers in Canada. Pricing is also plays heavily into how they are perceived, and also product variety, which again also allowed them to be in the top 10 in terms of their in-store experience as well. In 9th place, we have Loofah Farms. Loofah, for those who may not know them, they're a Montreal retailer, and they're basically a totally new business model in terms of offering fruit and vegetable baskets. It's basically urban agriculture, so rooftop agriculture around Montreal. And basically what they've built on is offering this overall customer experience, that they're actually reducing their carbon footprints from buying from Loofah, who will home deliver their fruits and vegetables, and offering great variety as well. And really, it's brand ambassadors sort of embracing the Loofah business model, making them part of that top 10. But it also says something, is that even though you're a small player, you need to have an excellent online experience and offer an omni-channel experience that rivals the big players if you want to make it. And that's what Loofah has been able to accomplish. So kudos to them rising into our top 10. In 8th place, sorry about that, I seem to have a frozen screen. We'll try it this way. Whoops, sorry. In 8th place, we have Amazon Canada. A lot of people would expect them to be in the top 2 or 3 because of the sheer volume of transactions on Amazon. Where they actually get some of their best scores is being extremely efficient at moving you from shopping to buying. So a very sort of streamlined experience, but on visuals, they're not part of our of the top players, and on some other variables as well, which still allows them to be in the top 10 in 8th place, but maybe not in that top 2 or 3 spots. And we'll see who these people are in a second. In 7th place, we have Fizz. Fizz is a new player in the telco industry, based out of Quebec, and have basically sort of, in terms of overall brand experience, the visuals are unique when you visit. It's a very much, they play on this gamification of the actual shopping process, where they score extremely well and allows them to be well in front of the other players in the telco industry across Canada, and #1 in their sector, and actually in the top 10 overall in Canada. In 6th place, we have the SAQ, of course, the equivalent of the LCBO in Quebec. Couple of areas where they excel is they have one of the top performing loyalty programs in the country, and it also offers a very high level of customization of your online experience. When you come in, it's not, here's what the SAQ can do for you, is here's what we know you love about the SAQ. Here are the products we know you like, and here's similar products that you might enjoy. Their capacity to personalize their online experience is almost unrivaled in Canada right now, and allows them to be in 6th place. #5 spot is Cookit. Of course, this is a sector that have seen an increase in overall volume of transactions due to the pandemic. Anybody offering sort of meal solutions right now is a hot ticket in Canada, and Cookit is #1 in their sector, mainly because of the ease of shopping, discovery of new products, and total product lineup and variety, where they outperform the other players in their sector. So good on them to be #1 in their sector, and actually in our top 5. Sephora is in 4th place. Sephora, mostly known for the quality of their in-store experience and the pampering of their customer in-store. Well, they seem to be able to transfer that, what some call retailtainment. They seem to be able to do that online as well, and are in 4th place. In 3rd, we have Apple Store. Apple Store, again, sort of one of the the first ones to actually bank on the omni-channel experience for their customers way back a few years ago, and I think that experience allows them to be #3 this year. And again, omni-channel for them is at the center of what they do, and are very successful at it. #2, Lush, also part of that group of retailtainment, where basically they're all based on the store smelling good, feeling good, looking good, trying products, the testers in store. That's what we know Lush for, but they seem to be able to carry that positive experience online as well. What people told us is the visuals of the site are second to none, and also how the store is able to display the variety of its product offering online is also something where they score at the very top of all retailers that we looked at. And in #1, Simons. Simons, of course, a department store based out of Quebec, but if you look at their scores for online experience, they're no better in Quebec compared to the rest of the country. They do well across all channels, and really they stand out as the #1 department store for online experience, way above anybody else in their sector. So congratulations for Simons to have been able to pull it off, because in the department store area, because of how wide your product offering needs to be, I think it's quite an achievement for Simons. So congratulations to all of them, and we basically will now look at by sector, because of course the WOW is a benchmarking syndicated study. That's what it aims at doing. So you want to look at yourself compared to your sector. If we look at food first, Costco is #1, but look how close the top ones are. Right behind that is Maxi, one of the Loblaw companies in Quebec. Metro is in 3rd place as well, sort of grocery retailer in both Ontario and Quebec. Avril in 5th place, and you have sort of the ranking of all of the different food retailers here, with Costco having an edge, mostly because of course, because of pricing and product variety. In the pharmacy, As well, we have Brunet, number one. They were one of the very first ones to offer also online consulting 24/7 on their website. They've always sort of ranked fairly high in terms of customer experience online, and are still number one in the pharmacy sector, with Jean Coutu second, Guardian third, Pharmasave fourth, and so on and so forth. In terms of hardware, of course, Luke mentioned them a little while ago, being in the top 10 for in-store experience, and they're also in the close to the top 20 in terms of online experience for Lee Valley. And again, it's the very specific product offering, and as well, one area where Lee Valley does best in all the retailers that we look at is the actual sort of online aids, product descriptions, and product photography, and how they display their actual product lineup is where they actually outshine people in their sector as well. For lotteries, we have Lotto Quebec, which sort of outshines OLG by quite a margin. If you look at alcohol and cannabis, the ones that we actually sort of measured as online stores across the country, it's very difficult to actually pay tribute to all of the online cannabis retailers because they do vary so much by province as well. So it's impossible to have all of the BC, Alberta, and so on and so forth represented here. But SAQ sort of in sixth place, whereas LCBO is 50th. And a lot of it has to do with the Inspire loyalty program of the SAQ, which allows for unique personalization on the website. Again, Simon's, look at this. Simon's number one in the department store for online experience. Number two is Hudson's Bay at ranking 81st. So I mean, that gap is something that the other department stores will need to look at and really look at what Simon's is doing to sort of close that gap moving forward in the future. In beauty, again, very, very competitive. Lush 2, Sephora 4th, Yves Rocher 10th, MAC in 17th place. I mean, all of these top four are very close to the top of the ranking. Bath and Body Works, which does so well in terms of its in-store customer experience, probably will be looking at closing that gap as well in terms of their online experience. Nespresso in the top 10, we talked about earlier on. For culture, we see that Chapters Indigo is in first place, in 15th, outshining some of its Quebec rivals, Renaud-Bré and Archambault. And same again, well ahead of Desserts and Michael's in the craft business sector. In terms of pet food, Mondoux as well, Quebec retailer in first place, ahead of PetSmart and Pet Value. In the eyewear category, we see clearly in 19th position, whereas Bon Look sort of clearly, and Bon Look being sort of some of the major players in the online, mainly online eyewear category, being sort of in that top 50 ahead of New Look in their sector. For furniture, we have Kitchen Stuff Plus in first place, ahead of IKEA and all of the other players in the sector. Kitchen Stuff Plus also is seeing that their numbers improving as well for their in-store experience. So they are obviously doing something right in both sort of the online and the in-store experience as well. Again, for telco, Fizz is number one, well ahead of anybody else in their sector as well. Altitude Sports is first for sporting goods. Nike, which has spent a lot of money in improving their online presence over the past few years, is in second place, ahead of everybody else. And in the electronic, again, Apple number one in terms of online experience, whereas they were almost sort of tied for that number one spot with Samsung for in-store experience. If we look at clothing, again, Reitman's doing very well. And again, a lot of those brand ambassadors, I think that Luke pointed out too as well earlier, which again, if you are, because you've been well served by Reitman's, well, for what seems like forever now, you are still loyal to your brand, and it shows as well in his scores for online experience. Steve Madden is number one for shoes. For online classified ads, Lepac is in first place. Online websites, Amazon ahead of eBay and Wayfair and the others. And for retail, Duproprio, which is an online real estate company is in first place in front of the others. We also have non-retail, or if you want, banking retail is part of our ranking, and Tangerine is in first place in terms of overall online experience. And if you look at the other banks in general, people are tough on their banks, and they've relied on their financial institution more than ever in 2020. But a lot of them engaging with their bank in new ways since the start of the pandemic, and maybe it's having an impact on overall scores in the banking sector because they've all gone down from their last year's scores prior to the pandemic as well. For insurance, we see the number of players is actually quite huge. La Capitale is number one in 34th place, followed by Promutuel in 45th. And then all of the other ones are 75th and below. Level of interaction, of course, with insurance websites is not what we see in other areas of retail. Maybe that's why these scores are a little bit lower as well. If we move to parcel delivery, FedEx is a little bit ahead of Canada Post and the others. It's been a tough year for parcel delivery overall because of the sheer increase in volume, of course. In meal delivery, we saw that Cookit was number one. Outbox is in 16th place, so not far behind. In front of La Boîte du Chef, We Cook, and Good Food, which are lower down. In terms of restaurant delivery, we see Domino's in first place. Long time. They actually do well in terms of their how well they do in terms of mobile app and mobile application. Domino's is number one for that specifically. Uber Eats, which has also seen now the sheer number of dollars spent on Uber Eats is twice what people pay on Uber as a mode of transport now. And again, doing well, even though the volume of business has increased dramatically over the past year as well. Loofah Farms, we mentioned in the grocery delivery, is number one, and a lot of the other players a little bit further behind what Loofah has been able to deliver. We're closing in on 1 o'clock as well. So we have just maybe a couple of seconds for questions. So I'll turn it back to Luke to see if we have any more questions. And if not,
so a question from, there's something wrong with my question box. Hold on. Sorry. For some reason, I think we have one question. Christian, you might be able to answer this. We're curious as to why we're not seeing Lululemon on any of these lists. I'm assuming it's because they're not. Which one would they be in? So Lululemon, we don't have the full list, right, of the 145.
No, there's one issue though for certain stores, because this is all based, of course, on incidence of shoppers. In Ontario, for example, for in-store, it was harder to conduct a study this year because of the sheer decline of traffic into physical stores. Some people, where we used to have or could easily get 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 respondents, this year it was more of a challenge. So we had to exclude some retailers where we did not have the sufficient number of respondents, we felt anyways, where we could deliver statistically valid results. So it may have had an impact on some retailers on the list. It could be the issue with Lululemon. Probably what we will do is, if we can come back to that specific person offline afterwards, we could actually find out why we're not seeing them here. Because in the past, Lululemon was actually part of the WOW study as well. So we could basically take this offline easily and come back to that participant.
Yeah, so any of the questions that I can see a few, but I don't know, Christian, can you see them? Because I'm sorry, I cannot seem to be able to see other than the first one.
Yeah, somebody's asking, for some online sites, they seem to be Quebec focused. Of course, we're doing the study nationally, but because our WOW in-store is Quebec and Ontario, the base from which we actually recruit participants will have a little bit of an impact, but it's also based on overall scores. One thing is when we look at the data, usually Quebec-based respondents tend to rate all stores a little bit more positively compared to people in the rest of the country. So they're part of this difference might be a little bit sort of cultural as well, in terms of how people view or appreciate or rate customer satisfaction. The fact is, it's only based on people who've recently visited these websites. So for example, in the case of Loofah Farms is one example. Of course, they were all sort of in and around Montreal, whereas for Pharma Choice, they were all in sort of the area where they will be based. But in fact, there are a lot of nationally available retailers that are part of the WOW Digital as well.
Yeah, and I think overall, Christian, I think we removed as a category the sportswear category, which is now, I guess, included in the clothing. There may have been
yes, as well. Yeah. All right. I don't see.
So any further questions that we can't get to because of the weird problem with our question box, feel free to email us and we will answer them as quickly as possible. Both of these reports are can be purchased directly from Leger, the bricks and mortar retail and the online, the digital experience can be purchased from Leger. You will have all of the details in the email that goes out after this this session. And for those who were in the top 12 and then top 11, expect an email from us with a congratulatory note from us to you. And I think, Christian, there's another webinar coming up on the 29th of January that you want to briefly talk about.
Yes. Yeah, this year we added a third WOW study. So WOW in store, WOW digital. We now also added WOW customer contact, where we will rate, for example, online help. We also will have your call center performance will be evaluated as well. So we evaluate other elements of customer contact that are part of your customer journey as well. And that will be presented on January 29th.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Well, it's 1 o'clock. I'm sure everyone wants to go have lunch. Thank you so much for attending. Once again, you may contact Christian or myself or anyone else at Leger that you know to purchase these results that would be based on your particular category, or call us or whatever it may be. And again, all of the questions we didn't get to, we apologize. Please email us and we will get to them. Thank you very much.